My name is Mary Wiyaki. I'm with the Office of Archaeological Studies in Santa Fe. I grew up in Santa Clara Pueblo. I am Comanche and also half Santa Clara Pueblo. I work for the Department of Cultural Affairs as an anthropologist, archaeologist, operations. So this means I'm in the field. I was a part of one of the largest digs in the city of Santa Fe called the Civic Center. And it was the old Sweeney Mid School was there, an old gymnasium, and it was right next to City Hall. This particular dig took approximately 2 years, and in it was every level of history you could think of in the city of Santa Fe, from the modern part of Santa Fe, from digging the asphalt. And then, believe it or not, we had to do surface collections. So you're finding things in the asphalt, free dent gum labels, really cool, really, people's coins. And then you come down and right underneath the asphalt, which is only 6 inches thick, you're actually coming upon historic Santa Fe. So you're getting wine bottles and different lids of pieces of metal. And if you look at a rusty nail or something, you wouldn't think it's anything, but we can actually tell you when that nail was made, if it's a wire, if it's forged. So we're dropping further down and we're coming into the Fort Marcy time period when the military had their great cavalry here in their fort, and they were protecting the edge of the prairie from the Comanches and the Apaches and the Utes, and introducing the Pueblo people into a different form of ceramic making. So they're making the Pueblo women make objects that they're used to seeing: soup bowls, plates, flower pots. So now we can use that information and say this is all colonial time period. So 1600s, we start changing objects. We get into the Mexican level. So believe it or not, the Spanish are bringing in soldiers from Mexico. So now we're seeing flowered objects. We never put flowers on our pots, Pueblo people. So now we're drawing flowers like you see in a lot of the cities in Mexico will have items with these big flowers on it. So that's coming in. So now we have another set of dates. And then below that, we're coming into 1680, Pueblo Revolt, which is exciting because Popey comes and he's defending his nations, not his nation, not only his nation, but all the Pueblo nations and Native American tribes around here in New Mexico from an invasion, and worried about colonism, losing his language, losing his religion, and so forth, So we see that in that test pit, that area in Santa Fe that I'm digging. And as we come down further, we're getting into basket maker 1, 2, and 3. So we're seeing a Pueblo site with kivas and home structures, and of course burials and really interesting objects. Knowing that they had turkey, finding turkey remains, mummified turkeys. The children had pet foxes. There were some dogs that were laid to rest next to people. So this relationship between the humans at that time and the animals was fascinating to me to see that. And you get to see it. It's in the ground for 200, 300, 1,000 years, and you're the first one to open that ground and look. When we finally get to the bottom, we noticed that the pit house structures, paint on the outside had murals. And it was just such a beautiful thing to see the artistry that the people left behind. And one thing that was found in there were turkey feathers, again, going back, that was the only herd that the Pueblo people had at that time, along with the domestic dog. There weren't any other domesticated animals during that time period. So when I got to dig through every layer of the history of the city of Santa Fe, it fascinated me even more into what I do as a living. here at the office. As a young Pueblo person, or I grew up here in New Mexico, and then I was taken away to California. So a lot of career objectives where you could go to a college or university and get an education and basically do whatever you wanted to be or do. You just had to take the initiative to do it. And one of the things I really wanted to do was archaeology, because a friend of mine had a book, and we started looking at it in the library, and we were saying, God, how interesting to go back in time. And the only way to go back in time in that now and then is to dig it up. I had been told that they were looking for someone to do labor at a site, and I wasn't afraid to dig or work or play in the dirt or anything like that. That was just part of my nature. So I went to the Civic Center and I talked to a couple of archaeologists, and they said, you'd be perfect. You need to, here's your application. And I filled it out that day, and I was hired the next morning. Our little school, for some reason, we would have all these special guests would come to the school. We had a variety of Olympians and astronauts and engineers in this little tiny school. And you wouldn't think that these visits planted a seed in anybody, but it really did in a lot of us. But we started as freshmen, and by the time we were seniors, a lot of us had broken records. We had become a force in the athletic field and in the academic field, because we had this connection with these aerospace engineers. Several of my classmates became astronauts as well as jet pilots, and I'm pretty sure that it was because these people came to our school and visited. My grandma, this is what I always leaned on. My grandma Daisy was a full-blood Comanche, and she was put into a boarding school. And when she came out, she really stayed at home a lot. And one day she caught me because I was running through the house, and I told her, she says, do you have a job? And I said, oh yeah, I work for the school. Do you like it? And I said, yeah, it's all right. And she goes, no, that's not what I wanted you to say. She would say, when you have a job, make sure that you like it and the job likes you, or you'll never be happy with what you're doing. You'll always question what you're doing. She says, you need to find a job that you love and that you're happy with. And that's where I am now. I love my job. I'm happy with it. And it's been taking me into some amazing places.